let me read the directions on this problem set. Lesson 6. Show the numbers on the place value chart using digits. Use greater than, less than, or equal to compare. Explain your thinking in the space to the right. Now, I'm only going to make you explain your thinking for the first one here. Okay? So we're just going to go through and do what it tells us to do because your exit ticket is very similar to this. All right. So 34, write it down, and 223 thousandths. And me, I think you'll catch on really quick. And then 34 and 232 thousandths. Now, we talked yesterday about how we look at the place values and we find the one that's different, the first one that's different. Aubrey, which one is different?
2 and 3.
2 and 3, and what place value is this? Do you know? You're right, the hundredths. So the 3 is larger in the hundredths place. So that makes 34 and 232 thousandths the larger number. Now, how could I say that in a sentence?
I found that
Let Ella finish.
I found that the larger one was because I put them on a place value chart in the largest.
Okay, and you don't actually have to say that much. You could just say that 34 and 232 thousandths is larger because the 3 in the hundredths place is larger than the 2. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and write something. I'm going to start with the 3 in the hundredths place. Is larger, and I like larger rather than bigger because it's just a more grown-up word. You could also say greater. Larger than the 2. So, 34 and 232 thousandths is greater. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
So the next one you're going to do exactly the same way, but you do not have to explain. So you'll write 8/10 on the place value chart and 706 thousandths on the place value chart. Now, a lot of boys and girls will think, okay, well, this one's larger because it has more digits. But we're going to do what we did yesterday. Compare. Which number's larger here?
8.
So that means 8/10 is larger than 706 thousandths. Now, what if I filled in with zeros? Because we talked about that yesterday also. Is 800 larger than 706 thousandths?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes perfect sense. All right, those are some strategies I want you to use when you come across problems you don't know. Now, here's something interesting. It says use a place value chart to help if necessary. So get it ready because there are a few. Do you remember what I said about your test? Everyone stop and look at me. Your test is full of things like this that have expanded form and word form and unit form. And I want you to get an A+ on that test. Completely awesome, okay? So in order to do that, you're going to have to follow along with the strategies I'm teaching you today because it's going to make you successful, all right? Now, some of these I'm going to do in my head, but when I get to a fraction or unit form or word form, I am putting that on the place value chart. So, Cooper, are you writing a sentence, honey?
Oh, no, I'm doing my place value.
Okay, he's making a place value. You've got one beside you that you could use. If you want. Okay. So this one I don't think I need to write on the place value chart. Which one's larger?
16,
16 and 4 tenths.
16 and 4 tenths. Now I see a fraction here, and my teacher said, okay, I'm going to rewrite that as a decimal. 83 hundredths. What do I? It's equal. Okay, I see a fraction here. My teacher said I'm going to rewrite that as a decimal. Equal. I see 3 place values in the on the decimal side and only 2. So what do I do?
Equal.
They're equal. Okay. This one, what do you think? Place value chart or not? What if I just fill in with 2 zeros?
No.
So 9 and 100 thousandths or 9 and 99 thousandths.
9 and 99 thousandths.
Or 9 and
Okay. So if I put it on the place value chart, you know what I was picturing in my mind? A 1 and a 0. Which one's larger? Okay. Now, did I tell you I watch these videos at night sometimes on YouTube? Did you know I do this?
Yeah.
And it's a math teacher. And he's quite good at explaining. He doesn't really have very nice handwriting. But I learn a lot from him. And one thing he said was that children are more apt to pick a number with a bunch of 9s in it than they are with a 9 and a 1 in it, without actually checking it on the place value chart. So don't just assume you know answers, especially when it comes time for your test next week, okay? Really look at these and use what you have at hand, your resources. Take a look at 83 tenths. Now, way back in the old days, I told you a trick for figuring out unit form and turning it into a decimal. I said the last number you write will be in the tenths place. So, what's the last number?
3.
3. So what number is this, boys? 8 and 3 tenths. So I'm going to write equals 8 and 3 tenths. And my answer is equal. Most children might pick 83 tenths because they think, oh, 83 is larger than 8. Take a look at the next one, 58 hundredths. How do I write that as a decimal? Now take a look at it.
The other one's bigger.
Why do you say that 5 and 8 tenths
Because
is...
there's a 0 in front of it.
There is no whole number here. And this has 5 as a whole number. So you're right, that's larger. Now, I believe you have H on this page, but I've got to turn my page. Are you just copying down?
No.
Or are you actually thinking through this? Am I going too fast? A little bit? Okay,
Tenths.
now just a minute. I want to show you on the place value chart for this one. 36 and 9 thousandths. Get your place value chart. Write 36 and 9 thousandths on there. Now, where would I put the 4 for 4 tens, Cooper?
Oh.
In the tens place. And I fill in. No, I could fill in with trailing zeros, but they don't have to be there, do they?
Nope.
So, was Cooper right when he said 4 tens is larger?
Yes.
Were they trying to get you to pick the number with the 9?
Yes.
Now, sometimes the number with the 9 will be right, but this time it's not. So 4 tens is larger. Okay? You've got one like this on your test. I don't think it's 4 tens, but it's something like that. Okay, place value chart for I. So the first one is 202 thousandths, correct? Is that unit form? So how do I know where to write each number? Oh, it's 202 hundredths. So where did I put the last 2, Aubrey? I don't want to hear your pencil. 200 200s.
The hundred.
The hundreds.
Ooh, they almost got me.
You're not going to let them get you. So there's the first one. Then we've got 200, right? And what's the rest of it? 2000s. Okay, it just so happens that this time the number with more digits is the larger number, isn't it?
Yeah.
So 200s is way larger than 2 ones. Okay, let's see if we can do this one without the place value chart. I think we can. 158 thousandths. How would I write that as a decimal?
0.158.
Okay, which number is larger?
158,000.
Starting to worry I made a mistake because they're all going the same direction.
No.
Okay, last one for the place value chart right now. 415 tenths. Take a look at it. What number will I put in the tenths place, Jaden?
5. Oh, sorry.
It's okay. We know you didn't mean to. So what is that number? 41 and 5 tenths.
I knew.
So write that down. 41 and 5 tenths. If you will follow these strategies, you will get a very good score on your first test in 5th grade. Okay, so which number is larger, 4 or 41?
41.
41.
Yes.
Okay. At the bottom, we will only do 2. I hear a lot of pencils and markers clicking around. We're just going to do the 2 A's. Now, here's the only mistake children usually make. Would you like to know what it is?
Yes.
They don't read it.
Increase.
Increasing, so is it going up or down?
Down.
Up. So it will be smallest to largest. Write that down.
Largest degree.
Now what does decreasing mean? Going down, getting smaller. So that will be largest to smallest, greatest to least. Okay, now what strategy did we practice before? Place value chart, all 4 numbers, right? So, get to your place value chart. We're going to write all 4 numbers. You write them down, and I will write them down. Go ahead and put them in order that they are on the paper. Okay, look at what we wrote. Looks to me like, and I need your eyes up here for just a minute as soon as you're finished writing those, okay? Looks to me like the 3's and the 0's all match. So I'm just going to ignore those. And I'm going to look at 49, 59. What will this be? 50. What will this be?
40.
Now we're starting with the smallest. Which number is the smallest? Say it for me, Mia.
3 and 4 hundredths.
3 and 4 hundredths. So that's what I will cross off and write down here. Now, if I weren't paying attention, I might just go ahead and write 3 and 5 hundredths next. But, since I'm paying attention, and I'm just looking at the 49, 59, and 50, which number is smallest now?
49.
The 49. So, 3 and 49 thousandths. They didn't get you, did they?
No.
Okay. Now I think I pretty much have it figured out, but let's take a look at it again. So then I've got 59 and 50, which is the smallest.
50.
50. So 3 and 5 what? How do I say that? 500. Good. 3 and 59 thousandths. So since we used our place value chart, nothing messed us up. And that's what I want you to do. If for some reason you don't get 100% on putting numbers in order, I'm going to ask, please use your place value chart, okay? Because my goal for you is to be successful. One more, boys and girls, and then you get to do your exit ticket, okay? All right. So what numbers, Cooper will tell me what numbers to put on the place value chart. Well, the rest of us write them. So tell me the first number.
7 and 681 thousandths.
Okay.
7 and 6 tenths. 7 and 608 thousandths. 7 and 68 thousandths.
Oh.
But you're wrong.
Which one?
The first one.
He
It's
said
not one.
80. Oh, no, it's not one.
It's 80. That's okay. That's easy to
Oh,
fix.
no, I read it wrong. I
It's
did
600.
slashes. I did slashes instead of the little.
This one is 608.
That's right.
So are we right now?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I did slash to do the order. What? What? She's not.
Okay, just a minute. 608, 68.
The 0 is 7.
Shh. Is that right? 608, 68, 6.
Yeah. You were right before.
Okay, now maybe Cooper misunderstood me. All I want to do is write these down in the order that they are on the paper. He was trying to give them to me in order. Okay, not a big deal, but don't try that, okay? Just write them down in the order that are on the paper. I'm kind of glad it happened. So then we won't make that same mistake, okay? All right, so looking at these, I'm going to go ahead and fill in. I can ignore the 7s. Why?
Because
they're all the same.
They're all the same. Can I ignore the 6s?
No.
No. Which number is the smallest?
0.
0 in the tens? Okay, now I'm going back to my paper because Rustin's right. I'm not starting with the smallest number this time. So, why don't we just write that number all the way at the end? 7 and 68 thousandths and cross it off. Now, you can do this a couple ways. You can keep going with the smallest number and just write them backwards. Or you can go ahead and find the largest and fill them in. It's really up to you, however you want to do it. So if I've already used the smallest, should we find the largest next?
Yes.
Okay, so which number is the largest? I've got my 6s.
7 and 680 thousandths.
Okay, but how are we going to say that number? He's right, 680 is larger, but how do I say that number? 7 and 68. Say it again. 7 and 68 hundredths. Okay, back to the place value chart. Jared, which number is larger, 600 or 608? So I'm going to put the largest number on there. 7 and 608 thousandths, comma. And 7 and what?
7 and 6 hundredths.
6
Tenths.
tenths.